I am currently working on a project called Warhammer Grimdark Dungeons, and it is a 40k dungeon crawling game with a really deep storyline and some really great lore. So I'm gonna lay out what the lore of the story is. Maybe you'll hear something that's, kind of sparks your interest or gets your own imagination going. But this is the story of the game that I'm playing. So let's get started. So, we're going to get started with the location of the story. There is a planet deep, deep on the edge of the galaxy known to mankind in the 41st millennium is a planet called Fomora. Fomora is the largest planet to ever be recorded. It is the size of a solar system. It is absolutely massive, with every single major climate zone covering its surface. In ancient times, nearly 1,000,000 years before even the Horus Heresy began, a species of man-like creatures lived on Fomora, along with other species such as orc-like creatures, ogres, giants, dwarves, elves, vampires. You name it, it all lived in this fantasy realm, on this world called Fomora, on the very edge of space. So, in these ancient times, there was a great king, and he kept the entire planet in line. And so the species, they didn't always get along, but they didn't wage long-standing wars. They would have jousts and tournaments, but they didn't really have major wars. That all changed. You see, the goddess of Fomora holds the same name as the planet itself. There is a woman named Fomora who controls this massive world, and she is a budding chaos god. When she saw this great king, her mortal soul, part of her that's just like us, wanted a life with this man, and his name was Galamir. She wanted King Galamir more than anything in the world. She didn't even want to be a goddess or a planet or anything else. She just wanted to have a mortal life with this king. So, using her great power, she creates an avatar of herself in the ancient world. And like Cleopatra, she becomes worshipped and loved by everybody who meets her. There's only one problem. The king isn't there. The second she comes down to the world, the king is split into two different men. Ignatius Galamir and Abelist Cain of Galador. They are completely different men, two halves of the same once whole. Once they are split, they do not remember a time when they were the great king. Immediately, the two war with each other in pursuit of the love of Fomora. They want this Cleopatra-like goddess woman. So they wage war across the entire planet. And every time a battle is won, one of the brothers builds a city or a temple or a shrine to this woman that he loved so much. So the world was covered in beautiful shrines and churches and cities that represented the great love, care, and beauty of Fomora. The two brothers continued to wage war until their wars pushed into the lands of all the other species, including that of the aristocracies of the vampires. The vampires were a rich people that manipulated and basically fed on the population of people, but they didn't do it in a very overt or noticeable way. When the wars pushed on their lands, the vampires began pushing back, and an army of vampires with the undead legions that they could bring back was quite the threat to both Galador and Galamir. Both of the brothers had no way of dealing with the undead. So they struck a deal with the monsters that lay underground, the ogres, these big dumb creatures, and asked them if they could handle the vampires. The ogres asked for but one payment, and that was to be able to eat every last bloodsucker. The war happened, and the ogres were released upon the vampires, and in a swift few battles, it was clear that the vampires would soon be wiped off the face of the planet. The last vampires decided to create a curse of Femora. And I'm going to take a break 1 second. The vampires attempted to curse Femora, but they didn't know that she was connected to this Cleopatra woman. They were trying to curse the planet. So what did the curse do? As they died, the vampires sacrificed their immortality so that the planet could never be escaped. Nobody could ever leave it. And anything that ever died that could have been eaten would disintegrate into the earth instantaneously and be replaced with flora, so with plants. So if somebody died, they would be sucked into the earth and flowers would grow where they were, leaving nothing for the ogres to eat. This devastated the ogre population and sent them into hiding for thousands of years, if not millions. The reason this matters, this curse, it wouldn't have mattered if it didn't do so many things to the entire planet. The vampiric curse had one final piece, and that was that every time somebody died from now on, they would return as the undead, as either a zombie, a skeleton, or a ghost, to haunt and destroy the living. This curse brought the destruction to all the beautiful cities that were built, at least most of them. And so the two men, these two warring brothers, were forced to wage with the undead now. The undead curse nearly ruined the entire land. And Femora knew what she had to do. She decided if it took the loss of immortality of the vampires to curse her world, that the loss of her avatar, her Cleopatra character, would do the same to save it. And so, despite her love for these two brothers and her attempt to bring them back to being one single king, which was what she had hoped for, she sacrifices herself, and the curse of the undead is broken, or so she thinks. It is broken upon everybody, the world is free of it, but the men she loves. Both Abelist Cain and Ignatius Galamir are inflicted with an undead curse, where they will die thousands of times in battle and be brought back to life, not remembering any of the times before that they had been killed. Both had been cursed to be in a constant state of warfare. Basically, in a way, there was never going to be a way for them to go back to being the great king. In a sense, she loses the man that she became sentient for and became a person for in the first place. So she went back to being a planet and lost her ability to be an avatar at that time. But over time, she did actually have the ability to come back as an avatar. The only problem was now the man she loved, this great king, was always split into Abelist Cain and Ignatius Galamir. So, that is how the curse happened and everything that happened in the past. Now we skip forward. The Horus Heresy has begun. 10,000 years of warfare is about to happen. An element of the Death Guard, still loyal to the Emperor, lands on Femora in the year 30K, and so does a deceitful unit of the Alpha Legion. Given opposite orders by the Emperor, they begin another endless war with each other. During these wars, two major captains would be found on each side. One called himself Ignatius Galamir, and the other Abelist Cain of Galador. They had lived again, having lived thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives in battle. They were now not knights like they were in the past, but now they were space marines. They waged war for 10,000 years and never questioned why they lived on for so long. They just thought that the Emperor had blessed them with an unusual long life, never questioning their ability to come back from the dead. Because they're not aware that they can even do that. They don't know that they do it each day. So, the story of the Horus Heresy happens, and unlike the rest of the galaxy, the Horus Heresy doesn't end so quickly here. It wages for 10,000 years, all the way up until the 41st millennium. At that time, the planet is invaded by the Astra Militarum, the Ultramarines, the Tyranids, and the Orcs. There are 6 major factions warring on this planet. And because of that, the conditions of the world have become completely destroyed. All there is warfare with no hope of anything more, just like the rest of the Grimdark future. But something has just happened. Fomora has come back. Her avatar has returned, and the goddess is amongst men again. She is here to help Ignatius complete his destiny, and Ableist Cain. They must become one again. The great king must reign, and she must decide her destiny. Is she going to be a goddess of chaos and destruction, or will she become the first chaos god to use her power for good and create the first heaven and Valhalla for the greatest warriors? That is her great destiny, is to create the Valhallan world where only the greatest warriors go when they die, and there they wage their wars eternally. After they die, they come back again and again, just like what happened to Ignatius. This place is designed to one day either be the hell of the galaxy where the souls go to suffer, or the heaven. And it is Fomora, the woman's destiny, to decide which one it is. So, the story of Grimdark Dungeons is one of a captured Fomora who has just come to the world again. And she's in a dungeon, captured, when she finds Ignatius, who's also been captured there. Her destiny is to rule the underground realms, to take over Fomora, and one day have all 6 armies bow to her strength. Forget the Emperor, forget the false chaos gods, forget the hive mind, forget Gork and Mork. I am your god. That is Fomora's goal, is to one day be the goddess of all of these beings, despite their beliefs. That is the story. This is the story of the 5th Chaos God, and whether or not she will be a hero that can replace the Emperor who is dying in his throne, or will she become the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known. That is the story of Grimdark Dungeons, where you will find your characters creeping through the underground realm of Grimlock after it has collapsed. And now, small portions of what are left of societies are building a new culture and way underground that will one day emerge as the church, cult, and following of the great goddess Fomora.